The NBS corruption report is the one we're talking about. This morning here is very hot, even though it's 24 hours when it was released 24 hours ago. Mr. Pt.1, the Chief Executive Officer at Financial Derivatives Company. Good morning. It's good to have you here.
Good morning, Bosse.
This is a very this is a hot one.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Yes.
So when it came out, what's your understanding of it, and what phone calls have you been getting about why is this corrupt practices or perception statistics is critical?
Well, first of all, it's saying the obvious. It's pretty obvious if you look at Transparency International, look at Corruption Index. Nigeria is perceived and considered to be a very corrupt nation, period, given. Two, corruption has become not just endemic, it has become pervasive. This report shows that just anecdotal evidence or empirical evidence in this case that total bribes reported or under the survey came to about $4.6 billion, which is just 1% of GDP. But what is interesting is that it's so widespread, so pervasive, so acceptable, it has become the norm. And so we need to go back to the root cause analysis, right, and say what is the fundamental cause of bribery or gratification in this society?
Well, this report has something in it for the public sector corrupt practices and something in it for the private sector and the public sector. So it looks like this is a partnership.
No, it's pervasive. First of all, there's soliciting of bribes, there's extortion, there are all sorts of bribes or gratifications, and people have come to accept that if you don't do it, you'll not earn, right? And so there this structure, what we call structurally induced corruption, where you put structures and they are virtually traps. You are busy, you have a flight to catch, and somebody stops you, and at that point you have no choice but to pay. And so after a while you say, rather than waste time, you now build into your system a form of gratification just to ensure that things go smoothly. We call it smoothing the curves.
Mr. Rwani, when in the days of very nasty petrol scarcity,
yeah,
we all drive into petrol stations or go with jerry cans,
yes,
and that is the home of corruption.
No.
Tipping the petrol attendants.
That's just a symptom of a fundamental issue.
At the grassroots level.
Yeah. See, what you have to understand is that there's the structure. As long as you have barriers to entry, as long as you have structural bottlenecks, as long as you have patronage given, it's all about rent. But as you dismantle the system, as you make the system more open, more transparent, and more accountable, you begin to reduce the areas of extortion and bribery. Then what happens is that the few areas that are left become more intense. Let me give you an example. The day you remove the custom officers from the checking-in counters and the international airport, that same day, 6 of the scanning machines into the airport broke down, coincidentally, right? And then there was all that confusion, but eventually you took it out. So if you were going to check in, you make enough time, and then it's late, settle the custom officer, settle the immigration officer, settle the security guy, get to the gate and all of that. But time is the most expensive asset, so you either build into your system that you pay for all of this ahead of time so that you have no problems, or you pay as you go. So you can have prepaid bribery or postpaid bribery. That's what's happening here.
I'm looking at why is everybody when this report is out, as always, there's so much angst against the public sector, whereas it looks like the private sector seem not to be, is part of the conversation, seem to be ignored.
No, that is not true. That's why I said it has become not just endemic, it has become pervasive, and it's become acceptable as a norm. Now, so you've got to decompose this. What is structurally induced, which means that whether you like it or not, you are going to have a problem, or how much of it is just technical, which is you are bribing as you go. And that's why I call it prepaid and postpaid bribery. But all is to achieve smooth and seamless transition to get your transaction done. But as the bottlenecks get removed, the need to bribe begins to disappear. You don't have to bribe to get a telephone line anymore because it's available. You don't need to bribe to get petrol anymore because the price has been there. You don't need to bribe as much as possible to get foreign exchange as it used to be before. Now So we're going on. You know, a year ago, to get your traveler's checks, it was easier to extract a tooth from a dentist than to get your PTA. But now you can get the PTA. So the bottlenecks, as you remove the bottlenecks, you remove the bribe, because these are toll gates. So if you debottleneck the entire country, you begin to see the result that it becomes smooth. But it's a transition. It happens in most societies that are going through the transition from imperfect market to perfect market.
This is something that's been on the street for about a year or two, so yes. I'm going to turn it around. It was a statement, but I'm going to turn it as a question for you to answer. Is corruption the same thing as stealing? And that's quoting the immediate past president. Good luck, Jonathan.
Okay, there's what we call shallow understanding of issues. So any receipt of gratification which is beyond, which is legitimate, and doesn't have to be in cash. It could be time, it could be jewelry. If you look at that report, they talk about gifts, talk about cash. Any such transaction is considered to be corruption, or corruption embraces everything. So to try to differentiate between stealing and corruption is first of all, it's semantic, and secondly, it's disingenuous, but it's also symptomatic of shallow thinking.
Let's make it a bit practical. If there's a director in a pension office of the police, for example,
yes,
and on his own, he doctored the check and takes out billions of naira on his own.
Yeah.
Now, that's both corruption and stealing, is it?
Well, yes. They intend to obtain goods under false pretenses, to obtain things to take things that don't belong to you. Stealing is actually taking something from a legitimate owner and moving it from its location to another location with the view that the owner will not find it, so that you can take it away, right? So there has to be intent, there has to be opportunity, there has to be evidence. There are so many things. So, but let us look at it. We are looking at it anthropologically. What does it mean to society? What values does this society value? Honesty and integrity and transparency,